This is On Air with BingX.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another session of our AMAs. And today we are joined here with Julian.
Hi,
And
Natalie. How are you?
yeah, how are you? I'm good. I'm really excited here to get things kickstarted. And yeah, for context, for our audience here, if you haven't heard, Julian Kwan is a seasoned entrepreneur. He's a visionary and he's a technologist who stands at the forefront of the blockchain and security token industry. So he's known as the co-founder of IXSwap. But Julian, do you want to give some background on like what IXSwap is about and your background as well for the audience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on. Great to meet the community here. My name's Julian. Appreciate you guys all chiming, listening in, spending your valuable time to hear a bit more about our project and what we've been doing. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. This is my eighth business, I think. Originally from Sydney, Australia, and I spent 13 years in China, Shanghai, Beijing. Started a bunch of companies and focused on advertising and social media, and then got into real world real estate development, and did a bunch of projects and some really cool stuff. First carbon neutral hotel development in the world, I think, in Shanghai. But then over the last couple of years, quite some time, we moved to Singapore to start one of the first online investment platforms. And I was believing that internet and technology should be able to dramatically change how we invest in all these private market assets, being real estate funds and VC funds and startups. So everything that's not public listed. So that's been the journey we've been on. And in 2018, we went full tilt into tokenization off the back of our Web2 crowdfunding platform. We built one of the first token issuance and security token issuance and exchanges in Singapore. And then 2.5 years ago, we embarked on a mission to see if we could build the Uniswap for security tokens and build an automated market maker model, which is what IXSwap is, to allow anyone with a real world asset or a security token to start their own liquidity pool, just like Uniswap brought that innovation to crypto. So IXSwap is, I think, the killer application for the real world asset space. For those that don't know, real world assets are just another name for security tokens. So they are asset backed, they are not cryptocurrency, they are real estate shares. Sometimes they are actually money, like cash is considered securities, T treasury bills. And you're meant to, do these through technology platforms that actually have the licenses. But that's why we're here today to talk about IXSwap. And thanks very much for having us. Happy to answer any questions and dive in.
All right, sounds good. So for all of the new viewers here, could you kindly briefly just explain what is the concept of tokenization of real world assets? So I know you explained what real world asset actually is, but what is the process of tokenization, and how is IXSwap gonna facilitate this process in a regulatory compliant manner?
Sure. So essentially real world asset tokens is any asset that's considered basically a security. So cash, real estate shares in a startup, shares in a venture capital fund, any company, regardless of what asset it's in. So the real world asset universe is enormous. In at the moment, we're looking at about $7-8 trillion of assets that sit in the real world asset. So what is the whole concept of real world asset tokens? It's tokenizing, digitizing shares of representation of ownership in these assets. So that's the simple breakdown. So if you're buying a real estate token, and you're buying a share in a real estate project or a real estate fund, whatever has been offered, conversely or in comparison, when you're buying an ICO or a cryptocurrency, you're buying a token that's part of an ecosystem, but there's no asset behind it. You're hoping that it becomes useful in the ecosystem. But it's very different from real world assets, whereas if you had a real estate share, there's an actual real underlying asset there that has, let's call it market value and agreed value. And typically real world assets don't go to zero. or very difficult for real world assets to go to zero, like some cryptocurrency projects. So that's kind of the simpler version.
All right, that's really interesting what you guys are doing out here. And what exact strategies is IXSwap implementing to promote the mass adoption of blockchain technology? I mean, especially in this context of security tokens and private market investments.
Yeah, so our vision and mission was that you should be able to, everyone, not just high net worth and rich accredited investors, sophisticated investors, everyone should be able to buy and sell and invest into all types of these private market assets as easy as buying cryptocurrency or buying a stock, say on Interactive Brokers. So we've been on that mission, and we've been able to just recently launch, after spending 2.5 years of tech development, product development, and licensing, to issue the first security tokens in our network and from where we're for all investors. So you have to do a basic KYC, i.e. passport and address. That's it. You don't have to show any net worth. You don't have to show anything about your financial status. And if you pass KYC, which most people do, you can now, with $1 USDC, buy a share of a real world asset. The first project we funded was shares in a pre-IPO health tech startup, which was available for everyone for $1. This has never happened before, right? So what we're doing, and now we're doing on a daily basis, is making it easy, and it hasn't been easy to build this. This was the first one, and make it accessible. And the real innovation, apart from what I just said around IXSwap, is that anyone who has a security token or real world asset token, if it's integrated with IXSwap, can start their first liquidity pool. So as an example, I bought $5,000 of this security token that was shares in the startup, and I started a pool on IXSwap with those shares. So then people can come to IXSwap and they can buy and sell it, just like when you come to Uniswap, you can buy and sell crypto. Behind Uniswap, there's a bunch of people that put those cryptocurrencies into the pool, and they share in the market making fees with Uniswap, and it brought liquidity to the decentralized exchange model. So what we're doing is bringing liquidity and access to all the real world assets for all investors. And that's something that I think is, it's amazing. And that's something we've been able to achieve. And now we're going to grow the business. And that's kind of I think, hopefully our unique selling point and the value that we brought to the blockchain industry.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, I can see it definitely, reducing the friction with what you guys are having. So that's really great.
Well, friction's just one thing. Like most of the time, people don't want lots of investors in their project because of, in brackets, paperwork. So if you can then tokenize shares on platforms like IXSwap, you can bring hundreds, tens and hundreds and thousands of investors into projects at no incremental increase of cost to the people who are raising the money or selling the shares. This is one of the fundamental value propositions why people will do this. And that's, again, there's many layers of value, but that's certainly one of them as well.
Definitely. So one of the questions I also have is that, so you guys mentioned automated market makers. So these have gained so much popularity in DeFi lately. So how does IXSwap's AMM protocol and liquidity pools address the liquidity challenges, faced by the token industry?
Yeah, so one of the main value propositions people want to tokenize assets is to get some enhanced liquidity. But tokenizing anything doesn't guarantee any type of liquidity. And a lot of these assets that people are tokenizing are, very diverse. So it might be, Natalie's shares of her lemonade stand and it's, $10,000. Or it might be Julian's real estate fund and it's $100 or $100 million, et cetera, et cetera. So there's very, very diverse real world asset tokens, and there's going to be more and more, and eventually there'll be millions, and they'll be all different shapes. They'll all be all different sizes. The automated market making model, which was born, it's an innovation that was born in DeFi. Uniswap's the most well known, and what Uniswap did in 2018, they probably started work on this before then, but what they looked at, if you go back to cryptocurrency market 2017, 18, you had I'll give an extreme example to try to make it the point. You had 10 big cryptocurrencies trading on Binance and Coinbase, and there was liquidity, and they were $10 billion tokens, and they had market makers, and they had $1 million to pay Coinbase to list. Life was great. Now, but then there were 10,000 altcoins that sat on the decentralized exchanges because they didn't have all of those things the big coins had. So what happened was they wanted to trade, but there was no market making solution. So you go to a DEX back 5 years ago, and there was no liquidity, and no one really traded there again because there was no way to trade. So there was just thousands of coins listed. ABC coin, $1, fingers crossed, hope someone comes and buys it. So what Uniswap did was they said, okay, we're going to use smart contracts. We're going to allow anyone with 2 crypto, again, I'm simplifying it, to start a liquidity pool. And then anyone who has those same coins can join that liquidity pool. And you know what? We'll create market making pools that are crowdsourced, and we'll share those fees with the platform. And then people who come to the front of Uniswap can buy tokens that have pools. And away we went from zero to hero. So IXSwap's position was, okay, let's fast forward to 2023. And again, we started working on this 2.5 years ago. But we were saying, okay, there's going to be tens and hundreds and thousands and millions of security tokens and real asset tokens. They're all going to want trading, but most of them don't belong in an exchange. So this is the 10,000 crypto analogy. So an altcoin analogy story that I just told. So if you start thinking about millions of these real world asset tokens listing on all these security token broker dealers around the world, they would just list there, you know. It's better than when they were on paper and no one could see them and there was no venue at all, but it's half the solution. So we looked at it and said, okay, if 99.9% of real world asset tokens are going to list on these OTC platforms, they're going to want some trading. They don't belong in an exchange like with the order books and matching engines and traditional market makers. But so why could we build the Uniswap for real world assets and the Uniswap security tokens? The difference would be we need to have a broker dealer and a custodian behind the platform to facilitate the legal pool and a legal trade. So Uniswap does pools and trades for crypto. They took down the security tokens because they don't have the partnerships and the licenses to do that, and maybe they don't want to do it. So then we built IXSwap, which behind the platform and smart contract actually plugs into a security token broker and a security token custodian. So there's legal pools and legal trades. So it's legal compliant pools for all these STOs. And we think that that's the killer application for the whole. Again, I'm using STO and real world asset interchangeably, but we think it's the killer application for the space because anyone with a token doesn't, can start the liquidity pool themselves if it's integrated with the platform. So hopefully it can do something similar that Uniswap did to crypto markets that IXSwap can do for the real world asset market, liquidity, volumes and marketplace.
Got it. Yeah, that's amazing. And how do you see this application, transitioning, throughout the, upcoming evolution of security tokens? Like, how is IXSwap going to adapt towards the changes of it, and how are you guys going to contribute to the growth and development of this market?
Well, so we provide licensed technology, infrastructure. So anyone who has a security token can now come to us. If they're integrated on the platform, they can use the system and start creating liquidity pools for their assets. That's the simple version. We're going around the world, signing up more and more security token broker and security token custodian. So eventually, over time, IXSwap is in every single country because every single country has their own securities laws. So it's important that the community understands that. It's very different. Well, actually, in crypto now, every country has their own rules. But back in the day, no country had any rules because crypto was new. But anyway, securities laws are specific to each jurisdiction, every country. So IXSwap's mission is to sign up a security token broker and custodian in every single country that matters around the world over time. And it also has gone and got its own licenses, so it can offer all the services itself. So that's how we kind of positioned it. We have our next partner signing up now, which is Liechtenstein SDO platform, Equanimity, InvestHub, and lots of discussions around the world with people that want to use it. Because if you've set up a security token platform with technology and or a broker-dealer license to issue security tokens, you don't have a market maker because traditionally OTC trades, which is what Uniswap is for crypto, IXSwap is an OTC type trading engine for security tokens. They're typically in the history of the world, there's never been market makers for OTC trades. Typically, OTC trades is someone calling someone else and saying, do you want to buy these shares? If so, okay, how do we do this? Send me money, I'll send you a contract. That was the old world. So right now, we're going to see, and you're seeing this around the world, Singapore, Hong Kong, Germany, London, all around the world, more and more security token platforms come to the marketplace. Now, most of the people who are issuing the security tokens on those platforms, the real world asset tokens, are looking for some form of liquidity. And now we can give it to them. So if you're an STO platform anywhere in the world and you're listening to this, you've probably spent a lot of money and time to build systems, again, licensed or not. And every single conversation you have with someone is, oh, this sounds great, but where's liquidity? If you plug into IXSwap, you can actually provide a system for it. Now, they still have to bring some of that liquidity, but this answers all their concerns. So the more of their potential clients that want to launch real world assets and security tokens can understand that, there's actually this liquidity system, and the liquidity volumes will depend on the asset and its performance and who's managing it, and how good it is, and how many people bought it, and all these different things. But there's now an actual tangible working system that they can plug into to solve their biggest problem, which is, where's liquidity for my asset?
Yeah. Gotcha. And another thing that we notice is that the decentralized access to retail investors is obviously a key aspect of IXSwap's vision. So how do you guys ensure that the platform remains accessible and inclusive for all types of investors, including those with low capital?
Yeah, well, to do that, we went and got our own license that allows all investors to access the platform. So we've solved that problem. It was hard, but we've solved that problem. And because of that, that was one of the reasons we had to go and get our own licenses. Not that was our plan when we began. It's because every jurisdiction around the world has their own rules, and a lot of them only allow sophisticated and high net worth investors into deals. So we know we needed to do this so we could deliver the promise and continue to deliver the promise and the services for all the investors, exactly as you kind of asked.
All right. And could you tell us more about the IXS Launchpad? Like, how has it, empower emerging businesses and startups to raise funds and tokenize their asset? And what exactly makes it stand out in a crowdfunding landscape?
Yeah, so great question. Launchpad is unique because it is paperless. So buying, selling real world asset security tokens on the platform must be done using cryptocurrency. There is no bank accounts, there is no paper. So it's one of a kind in that instance. It also allows all investors to invest into deals. You don't have to have a network. We don't ask how much money you have. You don't have to show anything along those places. So, and it's launched the first couple of assets, which allowed anyone to invest with a minimum of $1. And some of these assets are worth a lot more than that. So it's solved accessibility. It's solved minimum investments. It has, I guess, solved how do you build a platform that's purely blockchain based for all the assets, whether it's payment or actual assets like the STOs. So there's a lot of different things. And we built it also because we wanted to deliver that promise of making it as easy to buy crypto for everyone around the world. And also we wanted to funnel more assets into the liquidity pools of the AMM on IXSwap. So it has a launch pad, which is it's like a crowdfunding website. You can go there, you can choose deals, you can choose to invest $1 or more. And then once those deals are funded, we create liquidity pools on the AMM. So in the future, you have secondary trading optionality, which again, that's never happened before. If you think about any single crowdfunding platform in the world, I started one years ago for real estate. If you think about equity crowdfunding, there's some great platforms like AngelList and some very famous ones, Crowdcube in the UK. Most of those are buy a share of a startup, regardless of how small or big the share is, and fingers crossed, wait for 5, 10, 15, 20 years to see if you can get an exit. There was no exit optionality. IXSwap says buy a security token or a share, a digitized share of a startup or whatever the real world asset is, and come back tomorrow and you can trade it with the liquidity pool, or you could even put your assets in the AMM in the liquidity pool and share in the market making fees. So this is like truly game changing for the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that we found interesting is the InvestorX tokenization. So, how does the InvestorX tokenization SaaS? So, how does it actually work? And could you elaborate on how it supports other security token platforms and exchanges in overcoming liquidity challenges?
Sure. So for the audience, we actually started InvestorX first. It started as a real estate crowdfunding platform. It went full tilt real world assets to it 2018. It added an exchange license onto its broker dealer license. And then it came out as a service as a software model, which means that if you're an investment company, a real estate, private equity, startup company, whatever, if you want to launch your real world asset token, you can do it on our platform and you can co-brand it. So it could be real estate company or venture capital funding, and you can issue, trade, and custodize security tokens on the platform, all under our license tech, and it's just a low monthly subscription fee. So that's what InvestorX is at its core. So it's trying to help every asset. We're asset agnostic and jurisdiction agnostic. So we have real estate clients, we have venture capital clients, we have ESG thematics, we have carbon-related projects. And so when we initially built IXS Swap and we started working on it 2.5 years ago, we built it as the first market maker for the InvestorX platform, because we were speaking to thousands of issuers, companies that want to issue real world assets, and everyone was saying, where's liquidity? How do you get liquidity? So we built IXS Swap out of necessity for the original demands that were being asked of from the clients at InvestorX. So they're sister platforms, and we run both of them. And then we also future-proofed IXS Swap with its own licenses and its own launchpad to get all the retail investors in, and also be able to help more and more companies. So we're really trying to build necessary infrastructure that everybody needs, and try to build open architecture. And we're 100% focused on public protocols. So that's one of the important things about our business is we only believe in public protocols. We don't believe in private chains. We know some banks and whatnot want to use them. We're not interested. All the power of blockchain, of tokenization for real world assets only exists if you're on public protocols, because then you connect to all the power of the other digital assets. Plug into DeFi, plug into automated market makers, connect and trade against cryptocurrency, stable coins, NFTs, DAOs. All the assets that matter in the world on blockchain are not on private chains. So IXS Swap and InvestorX are two of the first real world asset platforms anywhere in the world that has full approval to issue these real world assets on public protocols. Most other platforms have got their private chains because it's easier to get approval, but it's completely disconnected from the power of all of digital asset industry.
Sounds good. Our next question is, so the ESG, environmental, social, and governance theme, security tokens are gaining so much importance. So how does IXS Swap enable the creation and trading of ESG themed security tokens, and what impact does it have on responsible investing?
Yeah, I mean, actually right now there's a ESG thematic offering on IXS Swap. It's a debt deal that offers 10% per annum interest on a 6-month term. So it's probably 5, APY is 10%. It's asset-backed personal guarantees from the company borrowing it. So this is our first ESG asset, and it's just a short-term debt deal, basically. So, I actually did the first carbon neutral development in Shanghai in 2007, which was a boutique hotel called Urban Hotel. So I've been really interested in the space for a very long time. It's very difficult. ESG it's difficult to measure, right? Environment, social, governance, goodness. There's a lot of greenwashing going on in the world. There's a lot of heavy debates about the reality or impact of carbon credits. There's different types of carbon credits. There's so much going on. So we're trying to find companies that actually make money and are doing and that have a positive impact. So I like to think of ESG really as more as a positive impact assets and offerings. And look, we're deep into that, exploration. Every single day we're looking at different types of products. But I think that, if anyone considers themselves an ESG investor or looking to support those types of investments, they can jump on the platform today and buy one of the best offerings out there. Because one of the challenges with a lot of the ESG projects is they don't make any money. So it's fine to come up with, great sounding projects, but if they don't make any money, investors are not going to support them. So you need, anyway. So I'm still sort of positive on that, but it's challenging to find good projects. Although I know there are some out there, but we'll keep looking, and we know that more capital is flowing towards that space.
Yeah, that's interesting. So just a follow-up question on that. So other than the ESG aspect of things when it comes to a project, like what is there any other traits that you guys look for in a project aside from that?
For us, tokenization enables a lot of value. It enables digitization, greater transparency, enhanced liquidity, the ability to create liquidity pools and plug into automated market makers like IXS Swap, eventually being able to lend and borrow and stake your real world assets, which is something we're working on, has started with new investment structures using smart contracts and blockchains, new distribution channels, through all the other digital platforms being built out there, whether they're cryptocurrency platforms like Coinbase, or whether they're Robinhoods, or whether they're DBS Bank launching a crypto exchange. So there's many, many layers of value. However, the most important thing in real world asset or security tokens is the security, all right? So what is the asset that's being tokenized? Is it a good asset? Does it have does it make money? Who's managing it? So one thing that we tell our community and our audience is, don't get fooled by tokenization. A lot of that was crypto's magic. With real world assets, you're getting a share of the real world asset. That's what's most important. So you need to do due diligence on that asset. And for us, we try to choose, legitimate, creditable companies and managers, investment managers with track records, and the team behind it, and make sure they also have the licenses to do the investment that they're issuing. Right? If you're launching a real estate fund token, you must have a real estate fund management license. So these are the things that we have to check as a platform, running people through KYC, AML, and checking to see if they're qualified, or we believe they're qualified, or they can prove that they're qualified to launch these investment assets. So it's very different from cryptocurrency. And you've really got to go back to basic fundamentals of investing and basic elements of characteristics of an investment you would make, or you should make, as an investor, with or without tokens there, because the tokens are just a digital share.
Yes. Gotcha. And the next thing that we have is that the transaction of tokenized real assets is a really unique term. So can you clarify what it means and how it benefits investors and issuers in the security token space?
You mean the terminology?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The very first, so if you go back to 2018, 17, 18, you had the ICO, the initial coin offerings. Then when that market melted down and the SEC in America started chasing a lot of these projects, saying that's actually a security. It had the characteristics of a security, which means you should have used broker dealers and exchanges and custody. You should have used licensed companies to launch it, but you didn't. You just sold it online. You sold it to all the people. It was illegal, right? So back in 2018, we used the term security token offering, STO. And that was the very beginning. Since then, we've used tokenized security, crypto asset securities, asset-backed tokens, and then we've gone full circle back to security tokens, and now we're using real-world asset tokens. So we're actually just come up with the 5th or 6th version of a name for exactly the same thing. So essentially now, the RWA, a lot of people in the banking world do not like that term because it's already used in finance. I believe it's risk weight adjusted is the definition for RWA. Anyway, blockchain industry does things their own way. We've now coined the term RWA, real world asset tokens, to distinguish them against or in comparison to cryptocurrencies, which are not asset backed. There's no real world anything behind the cryptocurrency except the belief system of the community that buys it, right, and uses it. So the terminology is, the debate rages all day long. Is it a good term? Is it a bad term? What should we be using? For me, it is what it is. We now have to say RWA/STO, even though kind of generally the same thing. But I think that one of the reasons it's taking off this year is because companies like IXSwap have been building for years, getting all the necessary licenses, and there's other platforms around the world doing different things, or same but different. That's one of the key reasons why it's taking off. But also, it's actually not a bad term because it distinguishes these assets that they're very different from cryptocurrencies. And that helps people. It helps regulators. It helps investors. It helps the average person. What's a real world asset token? What's the difference between that cryptocurrency? Oh, it's a share of a company. Or okay, that's pretty easy to understand. So that's how we got to this terminology. That's kind of the reason it exists, and that's where we're at today. Who knows? It might change next year to something else, but it certainly is a massive growth industry, and so I don't really care what it's called, as long as it's all starting to happen and it's less confusing for people.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear how it transitioned from before and to what it is now. So wrapping up, so investing in private markets for only $1 sounds really intriguing. I mean, I'm intrigued myself. So could you walk us through how IXSwap is making this level of accessibility possible for even retail investors?
Sorry, that just cut out. What was that last part?
Yeah, could you walk us through how the $1, an investment in private markets is possible in this level of accessibility, even for retail investors?
Yeah, it's possible because our team, they're legends, and they've slaved their butts off for 2.5 years to build this platform, to get necessary licenses, and also convince big asset owners they should allow small investors to invest such a small amount to and open up access to all investors. So it's a combination of many years of hard work, our strategy, and our ability to execute. So has been extremely difficult, but I think, and we've lost a lot of people along the journey, as all startups do. But I think those that have remained on point believe and can see, the beginning of the fruits, kind of the labor sort of coming together. And I think ultimately there's a lot of people in the team that believe, which I believe, that the current finance and investment world we live in is completely broken, and we have a chance here to completely change things, even though we've got to play within certain boundaries and rules with licenses and whatnot. That aside, we can do some amazing stuff. We can build AMMs, we can get investors in for $1, we can allow all investors in, and we can then start looking at all the other value proposition of tokenization of real world assets. So it's a combination of many things, and it's certainly been a lot of people who have worked really hard to get us to this point, and some support from some great investors as well who believe in the mission.
That's amazing. Yeah, kudos to you guys for creating this. And I think that pretty much wraps up our AMA today. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to the audience for streaming in. And yeah, we'll see you guys when we see you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And please sign up to the platform.